Chapter 5. One guest gets evicted. Getting a clearer picture. Immediately after Lisa had told me she'd seen Carl as a reptile at the Whole Foods store, I did some research and investigation into reptilians. So by the time the healing team met with Carl for the first time, I already knew a little bit about them. During Carl's individual session with Robert, he perceived the vague hooded figures who appeared to him in kind of a gray mist, the same thing Lisa saw afterward when we were all together, as being something out of a horror story. But even though the three figures had felt threatening to him, we had all gone into our second group session giving the guests the benefit of the doubt as to their identity and purpose. We'd been misled by what they'd originally told us, which was that they would only leave when Carl honored his agreement to deliver their message. We may also have been led astray by our own previous experiences and preconceptions. Each person is unique. We each believe and disbelieve different things and are better at some things than we are at others. And each person has a filter through which he or she sees and interacts with the rest of the world. This is true for channeling as well. The guides speak through people using the individual's own voices and vocabularies. When we are channeling, the information we receive passes through our personal filters. During our sessions, the healing team was receiving information from a lot of different guides, all of which was passing through our own filters. The reptilians had been busy blowing smoke at us and were successful in deceiving us in the short term. But in spite of all their efforts to throw us off track, it hadn't taken us long to get them to reveal their true colors. They were not remotely interested in helping or protecting Carl. Their only interest was in protecting themselves. That's why they became so agitated when we began questioning them. They finally got caught, and they're not used to getting caught. Unmasking the reptilians only strengthened our resolve to try to help Carl. But this was new territory for us, and we needed to tread carefully. It was also a tremendous learning experience, and I'd felt from the beginning that the team had come together both to help Carl and to learn. Carl, on the other hand, was anxious to move things along. Regardless of any prior agreement he may have made, he wanted to have these unwanted guests evicted as soon as possible. He asked us why we couldn't just get the information he was supposedly carrying out of him. But of course we couldn't do that. He asked, "You've never gotten this from anybody else you ever worked with?" We truthfully answered that we had not. Although Jesus, Archangel Michael, and Archangel Raphael had made it clear that they did not have dominion when it came to dealing with the reptilians, Lisa and I both sensed during the second group session that there were star beings who did have dominion and who would be willing and able to assist us. Neither of us yet knew who those star beings were. The rest of us agreed to communicate with our guides and put our heads together during the following week before getting together with Carl again. Meeting the Arcturians. I woke up suddenly around 3 o'clock in the morning the night after that session. I knew something or someone was in my room with me. Something was happening. I didn't see anything, but I felt a presence, a peaceful presence. The energy was very positive, very loving. I felt no fear whatsoever. I just said, "Who's here?" or "Who are you?" And the answer was, not out loud, but telepathically, Arcturians. Arcturians? Who are Arcturians? I told myself. I asked them what they were doing. They told me they were giving me a download to help me deal with the reptilians, and specifically with Carl. After everything I'd already experienced, I wasn't shocked or surprised. It all felt right. I don't remember everything. There wasn't a lot of conversation, but I gave them my permission to proceed, and the download came through real strong. I think I had heard someone say they channeled Arcturians before that night, but I had no idea who or what the Arcturians were. The next morning, I started researching them. One thing I found out surprised me, but it also cleared up a mystery. I learned that Athena is the Arcturians' mothership and that it's in our universe right now helping us. Up till then, I had never understood the purpose of Athena being one of my guides, since she had never been involved in any of the work I had been doing with my other guides, Jesus and Archangel Raphael. I thought she was just that Greek goddess. But suddenly it made sense. The Arcturians, who are a group consciousness, had set all of this into motion and were waiting for the right time to reveal themselves to me. Just like Raphael, they too had been with me from the beginning, and it was no accident that we were encountering the reptilians at this particular point in time. The Arcturians gave the same download to Lisa, and she and I connected with them again during the week. Robert had done his own research on them, so all three of us were better prepared the next time we met with Carl. We had also been in communication with Orion, who had previously told me he would always be here to help and protect us. Little did we know from what. He now expressed willingness to participate in the work we were doing. Before we all gathered together again, I was in deep meditation with the Arcturians, Orion, and God, preparing myself for the session, when suddenly I saw one of the reptilians being hauled away by a group of Arcturians, the same way the angels take demons and discarnates. They only took one of the reptilians. It seemed to be the largest of the three, and he seemed completely incapacitated and dejected. I said, "Take him to the light, wherever you go, whatever the light is for the reptilians." The other two reptilians became very agitated and concerned as they tried to understand what had just happened. I wasn't sure if I believed what I was seeing, so I asked for confirmation from Raphael and Michael. I got further confirmation from Carl himself when he arrived for our session, looking more animated and alive than I'd ever seen him. He agreed that he was having one of his best days and that he felt much lighter. I had asked during my meditation if the other two reptilians would be going then, too, and the answer was no. I was told that would have to be done in stages so Carl could handle it. During the previous week, all three of us had received similar information concerning Carl. Not only had he been possessed by the three beings, there was something else going on with him. He had a connection with the reptilians that was at a different level, one that was deeper and much more subtle. It seemed to have something to do with his actual DNA. At that point in this evolving story, we didn't know what to make of that. Needless to say, the more information we received, the more questions we had. Questions only the Arcturians could answer. Acknowledging Carl's fear. I reminded Carl he was in the process of having a group of entities removed, a group of reptilian entities who had an agenda and who had been with him since birth. They had been making their agenda his agenda. So even though they would be gone, his conditioning would still be there. He would continue to think and react in the same way until he realized he didn't need to do that anymore. He admitted that all of his life he'd never known what it was like to be just me. Most people, he said, could figure out what they want to do with their lives, but he'd never had a clue. Even his ability to feel had become deadened. Many years ago, while standing in the shade of a tree in his backyard, Carl had seen one of his guardian angels. He'd had a few other similar experiences that had led him to believe things were going to start opening up for him then. But it hadn't happened. He thought his fear may have gotten in the way. And as much as everything we were discovering made sense to him, as much as he wanted his suffering to be relieved, and as much as he hoped what the Arcturians were telling him was actually going to happen, that fear was still there. Maybe that's why his mother had shown up this time. There had been many times when Carl had come close to ending his life. He told us that just a few months before he had been lying in bed considering suicide, feeling very agonized and praying for help so he wouldn't have to end his life, when he felt a hand across his cheek. It was a sympathetic, loving hand that he felt was trying to comfort him. He wondered if it was his mother's hand. I felt certain it was. I told him that after I'd seen the Arcturians take the first of the three reptilians during my meditation earlier that day, his mother had come up to me and hugged me. Carl's ordeal hadn't totally deprived him of his sense of humor. When I told him about his mother hugging me, he laughed and asked, "What's she still doing around here?" I told him she loved him, and he acknowledged that was true. It seemed to me his mother had had a hand in directing this process from the very beginning. Just before ending our session, we gave Carl a healing. Archangel Raphael was present, and so were Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, and the Arcturians, and Orion, along with many other archangels and angels. Carl's mother was absolutely jumping up and down with joy. So happy, so excited. She was literally dancing. Before they withdrew, the Arcturians had some words for the healing team. They thanked us for being willing to do the work we were doing and for the love and compassion they saw in us. It was clear to the three of us that we were on a healing journey right along with Carl, who hadn't come to see me by accident. We had started out making no promises or guarantees. We were simply showing up to see if we could offer him some help, yet so much had happened in such a short time. Before the previous session, I had heard of the Arcturians, but I knew nothing about them. Now we were communicating with them and experiencing their power and their strength, as well as their much subtler and higher vibration. While the process we were involved in hadn't always been fun, it was no doubt a tremendous learning and growing experience. And the Arcturians told me we were not yet done learning and growing from it.